At the Mobility Resort Motegi in the lush green surroundings of rural northern Japan. Who will leave Japan jubilant as Ducati look to dominate again in Honda's backyard? It's time to race in MotoGP. First on the calendar back in 1999, the Mobility Resort Motegi, known as the Twin Ring Motegi back in those days. A very challenging layout, dominated by hard braking zones and hard acceleration. 14 corners, 8 right, 6 left. Best race lap, Jack Miller last year, 1:45.198 on his way to a dominant Ducati victory here in Honda's home Grand Prix. And this was the key move when he found his way through on current title contender Jorge Martin into turn 11. Coming up next then in MotoGP. In the land of the rising sun, can Jorge Martin rise to the top of the World Championship after a sensational pole and sprint win double on Super Saturday? Will new KTM kits propel Brad Binder to a long overdue Sunday win? The South African is fired up from 5th. Pecco Bagnaia wants the pendulum to swing back in his favour. The world champion under pressure and under siege from Jorge Martin. And battered and bruised, Marco Bezzecchi fights to keep himself in the title picture. He starts 4th. Welcome back to Japan. Welcome back to the Mobility Resort Motegi, where we begin the countdown to the latest thrilling instalment in our MotoGP title showdown, which is closer than ever in 2023. After a 3rd successive Tissot sprint win on what was another Super Saturday for Prima Pramac Racing's Jorge Martin, the 25-year-old Spaniard comes into the upcoming 24-lap Motul Grand Prix of Japan, just 8 points behind reigning world champion Pecco Bagnaia. The pressure on Pecco, the momentum with Martin, who will prevail in our 14th round of 20 in this year's MotoGP World Championship. Bagnaia and Ducati, they have plenty of support here in Japan. The Bologna factory potentially today could win the constructor title for the 5th time in MotoGP, the 4th year in a row, such has been the Ducati domination of 2023. They've won the 17 of the last 23 Grand Prix since the start of last season. 22 of the last 33 Grand Prix have been won by Ducati. Will Pecco Bagnaia be able to bounce back and stop this charge, this momentum that has been built up by Jorge Martin over recent weeks? What was, after the sprint in Barcelona a short period ago, Pecco Bagnaia was 66 points clear in this year's title hunt. It looked like a formality. He was going to be the first Ducati rider to successfully defend the MotoGP crown. But there has been a plot twist aplenty. 66 points is just 8 coming here to Japan for the 2nd round of our 7-race Asia and Australia stopover World Tour. Matt Burton Lewis still to be in the commentary box. Simon Crafar down in pit lane as we get set to tackle the brutal hard braking zones around this Motegi circuit. Turns 1, turns 3, turns 5, turns 10, turn 11. So many of them to cover off around this 4.8 kilometre circuit. He who breaks the latest has the best opportunity of being our Japanese Grand Prix winner. Around this Motegi circuit, which is nestled in the heart of the Hakko Mountains near the Nakagawa River, And those mountains, as we well know in previous years, can throw up some unpredictable and some pretty temperamental weather. And there have been some rain forecasts around for later on this afternoon. We're still about 40 minutes away from lights out for the 24-lap Grand Prix of Japan. Fingers crossed we do get the action underway in full dry conditions, because it should be a cracker, with Marco Bezzecchi rebounding from a very heavy crash at turn 12 in qualifying yesterday. Started fourth. A few mistakes in yesterday's 12-lap sprint saw him slip back to 6th place, but 7 days ago, and a historic, memorable first visit to the Bud International Circuit in India, Marco Bezzecchi was completely untouchable. This was, though, one of several big moments he had in the sprint yesterday, Lewis.
Yeah, Marco Bezzecchi had quite the eventful Saturday here at the Mobility Resort Motegi, starting with that high-speed crash in qualifying 2, which he somehow picked himself up off his feet from. Then had a poor start in the race when his front ride height device wouldn't engage at the start, which meant that he had no real turning capabilities through turns 1, 2, and then up to turn 3, which is why he found himself in that battle that you just saw there with Marc Marquez and Johann Zarco. Bezzecchi in the end came through yesterday's sprint in 6th place. Not a disastrous result by any means. Of course, the biggest points are on offer here this afternoon. Only 12, of course, for the winner in the sprint. Those 12 points went to Jorge Martin. Pecco Bagnaia here had to settle for the 7 points on offer for 3rd place. In isolation, not a bad result for Pecco Bagnaia, but that is what it means in the chase for the World Championship. He leads Jorge Martin now by the slender margin of 8 points, the lowest margin of advantage he's had since he took the World Championship lead all the way back in Spain. He's led this World Championship since the end of April. Are we going to begin October by changing hands at the top of the World Championship, with Jorge Martin potentially leaving Motegi here this afternoon as your new series leader? If we repeat the 1, 2, 3 that we had yesterday in the sprint, with Jorge Martin winning the race and Pecco Bagnaia in 3rd, that would be enough to see Jorge Martin wrestle away the World Championship lead from Pecco Bagnaia. Some relaxed conversations going down in pit lane, but that will be a pit lane of building tension and nervousness as the start of the race draws nearer in just over 35 minutes time. Certainly a light-hearted atmosphere in the KTM camp as well. It is not out of the question that this Grand Prix could either have rain arrive before it or potentially arrive during it, as Jack Miller wishes the very best to all of his KTM team before this race gets underway. Hasn't been the best of weekends so far for the Aprilia team. Aleix Espargaro suffering his 3rd consecutive DNF yesterday. Maverick Vinales registering their only point of the sprint yesterday when he came home in 9th place. But can it be a better Sunday for them? Let's say from Massimo Rivola, who's in pit lane with Simon Crafar.
He is. Massimo, really like to hear from you in your words how the weekend is going so far in Japan.
Not good, really, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, it's not a matter of luck or not. The fact that we did another DNF with Aleix really is not acceptable. But we have to look forward and not behind. We need for sure to improve our general process and be more solid for factory bikes. You cannot stop on track. This is something really frustrating, and I totally understand the feeling of Aleix. Anyway, today is another day. We are really looking forward to race. Not sure about the condition, but well, personally, I don't think it's going to rain, but we need to be ready for both conditions. The tire choice is not easy. The 4 bike, maybe there is a bit of mix on our choices, and this will make the race even more interesting in a way. Yesterday the soft was fast, but we saw a bit of drop, so I don't know if managing the tire can be the right one, the soft or not. But let's see. I think the mix should be a bit split on the tire choice, unless the scare of the weather move everybody on the soft tire.
Massimo, thank you for your time. Best of luck this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Aprilia boss Massimo Rivola. Then, if we do get a little bit quiet here, if we do get drowned out, there's a Japanese Air Force jet which is giving a pretty impressive aerial display. There it is, right on cue. The afterburner in full glow, full burn. It's given the Japanese fans a nice pre-race spectacle, a nice pre-race show. Then Aprilia, unacceptable, their recent reliability woes. Marc Marquez in Honda's backyard at the circuit built by Honda, owned by Honda. Is this a Honda farewell on Japanese soil for the 8 times world champion? 3 times here in Motegi, Marc Marquez has been crowned MotoGP world champion. Those former glories seem like a distant memory now, don't they? Because the rumours, the gossip columns, they are still filled, they are still rife with this talk that just won't go away, that Marc Marquez will be on a Gresini Ducati in 2024.
Yeah, could this be the beginning of the end for Marc Marquez at Repsol Honda? Just signing a few autographs and giving the Japanese fans a memory that they'll never forget from this 2023 Japanese Grand Prix. Is Marc Marquez's biggest opportunity this afternoon if those rain clouds do drift over this Motegi circuit and drop some rain on us? He finished in 7th place in the sprint yesterday, suffered from a little bit of tyre drop late on in the sprint. Of course, he made a very good start as we watch 2 men in the grandstand who we can promise you will not be stepping on those Repsol Hondas in around half an hour's time. But Marc Marquez in the race here feels that a top 10 is a realistic result, which just underlines why Marc Marquez is flirting with the possibility of potentially getting out of that Repsol Honda contract.
Brad Binder coming to the KTM pit box on a nice carbon fibre framed push bike. A little bit faster he was on the KTM RC16, fitted with a new carbon fibre chassis in the Tissot Sprint yesterday. Brad Binder, just 12 laps into that new kit unveiled by KTM, said his bike has not felt any better at any stage during the season. This was a real hard, aggressive but fair move. Miller said nothing wrong with that, that's just hard racing. Binder on the inside of Miller at the start of that Tissot Sprint in the braking zone for turn number 11. It was so close between the 2 KTM colleagues. Binder was desperate at this point to go with pole man Jorge Martin, but Martin was the man who checked out and ran away with it. This is Jorge Martin, they're making a hat-trick. 3 Tissot Sprint wins on the spin for him. That's the reason why he's down 8 points in the World Championship. Binder, though, takes a stunning second. What an immediate impact that carbon fibre chassis has had on Brad Binder and Jack Miller's forged, of course. Miller on the front row of the grid as well for this Japanese Grand Prix. We just heard from Massimo Rivola, didn't we, that there could be a split, a flip of the coin maybe in terms of the rear tyre choice in these cool conditions, rain potentially threatening as well. Only one man knows everything about tyre choice and what the riders are going for. That's Michelin Motorsport manager Piero Talamasso, who joins Simon.
He does. Piero, we've been hearing that the tyre choice on the rear this afternoon is not clear-cut like the sprint.
Yes, it's not clear-cut, like you said. Well, so far the track looks dry, so it will be slick, soft or slick medium. The soft is giving you more grip at the beginning of the race, but yesterday already at the end of the sprint we feel some drop, even if the lap time was quicker, but we expected some drop for the long race for sure after half of the race. Then it all depends how the riders they can manage that. With the medium will be more stable, but the initial grip is less. So it's always the same story. At this moment it looks like half of the grid there with the medium, half with the soft. In general, the tendencies for KTM, Yamaha and Aprilia is more medium. For Ducati, Honda is more soft. So this is the tendency, but we will see some more change on the grid at the last minute.
It's also taken into consideration as if they're expecting it to rain. You'd be much better off to go with the soft and run and use it. Or have you heard things like that?
Yes, I heard from 2 or 3 riders. I heard about that. So they expect some drop of rain starting mid-race. So they prefer to take the advantage from the soft. But this is, is a pure gamble.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Piero Talamasso then. So a potential split in terms of that rear tyre choice, and could the rain play a decisive intervention in this Japanese Grand Prix? Heavy cloud cover overhead, this mobility resort Motegi, but that's been the story of Sunday so far. Although when we wake up this morning here in Japan, it was torrential rain. It has dried off, but some key decisions to be made for the key players in this year's championship. Of course, we're focusing on Bagnaia and Martin as they're split by that narrow margin of 8 points, but do not discount, do not rule out Marco Bezzecchi at Muni VR 46 Racing. 47 adrift is Bezzecchi, although he'll certainly need a bit more fortune or a few errors less than what he managed in the sprint yesterday. He had a problem with the front start device not disengaging on the run down to the first corner. That was locked on before he braked into turn 3, lost a whole bunch of place, and he tried to tough it out with Marc Marquez on the brakes into turn number 11, which didn't work out as well as he'd hoped for. And there's problems as well engaging the rear ride height device. Some Japanese fans who are supporting some Italian talent, and fair play to them. It looks like they've got a fair few signatures there on that Italian national flag. I guess they're well and truly in camp Bagnaia and Bezzecchi, aren't they?
Certainly are. And it is an interesting conundrum facing these riders, as Piero Taramasso alluded to there, in terms of tyre selection. And as he alluded to, he expects the Ducatis generally to favour the soft rear tyre. I would certainly expect Bagnaia to want to go for that soft rear tyre, because he's going to want that early explosive pace to try and get himself on terms, or ideally ahead, of Jorge Martin early on. The damage was done for Bagnaia in the first couple of laps of the sprint yesterday, not only missing the start and dropping behind the factory KTMs, but while the KTMs held him back, and of course Jack Miller held him back until the final couple of laps, Bagnaia lost so much time that third was the limit of his progress through the race. Bagnaia said after the sprint yesterday, I need to try and get ahead of Martin and essentially hold him up early on in the race to not allow Martin to use that incredible electric early pace that we know he's got.
This was early drama for Ralph Fernandez further back. That was contact that he had, big contact with Pol Espargaro as they powered out of turn 4 in the very first lap. Joan Mir had already gone wide through 3, and on the exit of 4, desperately trying to recover places. That was a heavy nudge, wasn't it? A big barge between the two Spaniards. Pol Espargaro clearly came out of the worst of that one, didn't he, on the gas machine? So, just trying to keep themselves calm, keep themselves relaxed. We are told by one of our Dorna colleagues, Elliot York, that out in the paddock at the moment there are just a few light spots of rain that have started to fall. Now, this would be a monumental curveball, wouldn't it? It's rained, well, light rain spots hitting the paddock. We're only, what, about 25, 26, 27 minutes away from lights out here in Japan. Those fans there in the grandstands, they look okay. They're still big smiles and t-shirts. They're not going for the umbrellas and raincoats. Simon Crafar, though, also just coming through, saying that in the paddock, at least, very, very light rain. Not even drizzle, I don't think it's fair to say, but enough certainly to be grabbing the attention of the riders, and in particular senior management. We saw there Gigi Dall'Igna walking out of the factory Ducati garage, as if there's not enough pressure and tension as we get to the sharp end of this year's World Championship, with the title chase closing up between Bagnaia and Martin. Wow, to throw rain to the mix as well, well, that just amplifies the pressure and tension tenfold, doesn't it?
Because if you're a World Championship contender, what you want is a straightforward race in stable conditions, let the fastest rider win. If rain is thrown into the mix, of course, that throws all sorts of added questions in terms of what conditions we're going to have at the start of the race, how those conditions likely to change as the race goes on. Now we're into flag-to-flag territory. Taka Nakagami might all need all the above to have some home race success. Starting from deep on the grid is the Japanese, coming from 18th on the grid and looking to recover from what was a difficult sprint yesterday. It's been a difficult weekend right from the get-go really for Taka Nakagami. 17th for him in the sprint yesterday. Felt that they did improve the bike on Saturday, but of course starting so far back he was unable to overtake his way through the field. But can he salvage at least some points here this afternoon to put some smiles on the many faces here who are supporting him here this weekend?
It's been a bit of a humbling on home soil, hasn't it, for the Japanese brands Honda and Yamaha. We just saw there, didn't we, Fabio Quartararo, who on Super Saturday said he was super slow. A dismal sprint yesterday for the Frenchman, and he's once again looking pretty disheartened with the situation, not completely convinced that Yamaha has the tools to get themselves out of this slump. Not really confident that they've got the new parts coming that can move them forward in the near and distant future. Nakagami then, this time last year in his home Grand Prix, he could barely grip the handlebars. He did an amazing job to actually see the checkered flag, of course, catching minds back to the Aragon round when Marc Marquez was pretty cavalier on that first lap. Contact with Fabio Quartararo, then further contact with Taka Nakagami. Nakagami unfortunately got his right hand trapped under his crashed LCR Honda, didn't he? And left him with a real nasty, severe That right-hand injury coming to his home Grand Prix. Marco Bezzecchi fans there in the grandstands. So then, two choices for the Michelin rear tyre, if indeed it is dry, for the slicks. The soft and the medium, both asymmetric, the harder compound on the right-hand side. But will you go for the medium or the soft? That is the big question mark as the clock ticks down towards lights out for this 24-lap Motul Grand Prix of Japan. Just keeping a very close eye on our commentary box window. No signs of those very light rain spots hitting the glass so far, and I can't see anybody in the grandstands opposite the commentary box going for the umbrellas. You can see there now team personnel, dignitaries and guests flooding onto what is always a packed grid then. The Japanese Grand Prix 2023 coming your way. There are the rain flags then. Well, out on circuit, the LED lights clearly indicating that there is rain. There is the rain flag. You can't believe this, can you?
Wow.
As if there's not enough drama in this championship chase between Martin and Bagnaia. I think Jorge Martin might have just seen actually that rain flag. Here he is, you're just wondering while he's crawling around this sighting lap here, of course, the hard stopping and the hard acceleration zones around this 4.8 kilometre Motegi circuit. It's a incredibly fuel thirsty track, one of the toughest for fuel consumption. So you're trying to do this sighting lap at the slowest possible speed. And we saw some dramas for the factory Aprilia team, didn't we, last year, when inexplicably they left on Aleix Espargaro's fuel-saving eco map, and we saw him come in at the end of the warm-up lap and just have to jump on the spare bike. It kicked off what was a dreadful run on the flyaway races. But at the moment then, sighting lap about to be completed, just over 20 minutes before we are scheduled to get underway here in the Japanese Grand Prix. But in parts of this circuit, there are rain flags being shown. Talk about upping the ante.
And upping the tension and upping the stakes, and the stakes are higher than they've been at any stage this season, with just 8 points separating Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia. And as mentioned, it would favour the riders who are on the softer rear tyre if we get rain during the race, because of course they can just take all the grip out of that soft rear tyre if they know that they're not necessarily going to need it at the end of the race. Just to catch you up on some housekeeping, you might have seen Michele Pirro passing through the frame as we watched Pecco Bagnaia crawl his way around to the grid. Pirro, of course, still substituting for the injured Enea Bastianini. We hope to see him back in Indonesia in a couple of weeks' time. No Alex Marquez here this weekend. He remains absent through injury. No Luca Marini either. Also, both eyeing a return to action in the Mandalika circuit in 2 weeks' time. Alex Rins did come here to Japan and did run on Friday, but decided that the pain was too much, but still a useful step in his road to recovery. So Stefan Bradl takes his place for the rest of the weekend. Bradl starts this Grand Prix on the back row in 20th place alongside Yamaha wildcard Cal Crutchlow, who qualified in 19th place.
This man has led the MotoGP World Championship since round 4 of the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez. And it's never come under any serious threat really since that point onwards, up until now, up until the present day here in Japan, because the pressure is mounting. He says he can handle it. He says he won't crack, but he is going to be, well, we will find out shortly when we'll go down to the grid then. Simon Crafar is with the Ducati Corsa boss Paolo Ciabatti.
Paolo, can you give us your thoughts going into this race?
Well, let's see. Obviously, yesterday it looked like Martin had an incredible pace. So Pecco was still not very happy. It took him quite some time to be able to go past Jack, and the gap was there. So obviously, we hope for a different outcome today. Let's see what the weather will be like, because they say it's going to be raining. It doesn't look like it's going to be raining, but we hear a few little drops coming down. So it could be, if it happens, a flag-to-flag race. But let's see. Obviously, Pecco wants to win because the gap on Martin is being reduced over the past few races. And I think it's going to be a great battle. I think the KTM will be there, probably Bezzecchi as well. And Marquez will try to sneak in between the first guys. So let's see. Obviously, we keep him crossed for a good result.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. So then as we just ran through the grid there, well, we got our first indication of where we're at in terms of tyre choice, particularly at the front of this grid. The most obvious standouts, it looks like there's a late change coming here for LCR Honda. Jack Miller on the front row. Brad Binder, second in the sprint, going from 5th. They were on the medium rear tyre, weren't they? Likewise, the Aprilias of Maverick Vinales and Aleix Espargaro, the factory Yamahas, also on the medium. So as we expected, Lewis, as was predicted, there is a pretty significant divide in terms of that rear tyre selection.
Yeah, looking down through the grid, all of the Ducatis that I can see on the grid are on that softer rear tyre. Looking at the Hondas, Marc Marquez is on the soft rear tyre, so too is Joan Mir and Taka Nakagami and Stefan Bradl. So it's the Hondas and the Ducatis that are on the soft rear tyre. It looks as though the Aprilias, the Yamahas and the KTMs have gone for the medium.
Definitely the coolest conditions we've had of the weekend so far here in Motegi since we arrived from New Delhi, where it was excruciatingly hot and humid. It's been pretty warm as well in this part of Japan over the last few days. KTM then, what a debut it's been. Well, we knew the carbon fibre chassis was superb because Dani Pedrosa showed it in the Sprint and Grand Prix with 4 places in Misano, and Brad Binder on the podium for the first time on that new frame. It works a treat, doesn't it? What about the Grand Prix though? Let's get some KTM pre-race thoughts from Francesco Guidotti, who's with Simon.
Francesco, both riders strong in the sprint yesterday. I want to hear your thoughts and concerns going into the long race.
Thoughts are really positive and optimistic. Can be different because starting from the first and second row after a good weekend since Friday, we can only hope in a good race today. Concern is a little bit about the weather condition. It's not what we expected, and this morning we didn't test what we would, because of the condition, the patchy condition. So I have a little bit of concern because we're not sure 100% about the tire choice, but it is like it is.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Simon. Thanks to Francesco Guidotti. Then, as it stands in the cool conditions, we have Jack Miller and Brad Binder both in the fight, weren't they, for the sprint podium yesterday, going for that medium rear tyre. Some late instructions from Pramac Racing rider coach Fonzi Nieto to Johan Zarco. Zarco had a good sprint yesterday. Once he got his rhythm and found his pace, 10th up to 5th for the 33-year-old Frenchman. His best sprint since the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, although he's still podiumless in that sprint.
Yeah, Johan Zarco might well see the wet weather today as something of an opportunity, won't he? Of course, we don't need to tell you, he knows very well he's chasing that first ever MotoGP victory. 117 attempts he's had. Will wet weather present him with that golden opportunity? We know this man's good in wet weather, isn't he? Miguel Oliveira, I don't think he'll be too gutted if the rain does arrive in time for lights out in just over a quarter of an hour's time. Miguel Oliveira, for the second consecutive weekend, you have to say, has been put in the shade by his younger teammate Raul Fernandez.
Yeah, not been the race at all, has he, in India and in Japan so far this weekend, Miguel Oliveira. Seems like he's been hurt with some rear stability problems, too much wheel spin coming off the slow corners at both Bud and here in Motegi. Go Aleix Espargaro, go Maverick Vinales. Thank you, Massimo Rivola. So Aprilia have plenty of support in the grandstands. There is Giacomo Guidotti, brother of KTM team boss Francesco Guidotti, Joan Mir's crew chief, doing umbrella duty here this afternoon as well for the Spanish rider, and Ken Kawauchi watching on. He's a man under pressure, isn't he? Trying to steer development of the underperforming Honda RC213V. Now then, we've mentioned this a few times over the last few weeks, but now it rings true. The momentum well and truly with Jorge Martin in this year's MotoGP Championship chase. If we look at downtown Tokyo, how is the Martinator feeling ahead of another massive Grand Prix for him and the team? Let's get the thoughts of Prima Pramac boss Gino Borso. Here's with Simon.
Gino, we all know how strong Jorge is at the moment. Also, Johan Zarco yesterday from 10th to 5th. And also Johan's so good in rain conditions, which everyone's worried about. Can I have your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. We are worried about the condition of the weather. We are looking for, we are trying to understand if in a few minutes we can have rain or not. Actually, the forecast said 3:30. So, well, we have to be prepared at every situation will arrive. So we are discussing about the second bike at the garage, which kind of setup. We know Zarco is one of the best on race condition, but anyway, we have to see what's going on in the next 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks to Gina Borsoi, thanks Simon. So there, weather predictions. They use state-of-the-art, of course, for weather forecasting systems. The MotoGP teams, Gina Borsoi reckons the rain may come at around 3:30 local time here in the afternoon in Motegi. It's just coming, or just gone past 2:45 in the afternoon, so maybe in about 45 minutes' time, some rain disruption. Maybe before that, are we going to get a flag-to-flag race here in Motegi? I don't know what it's like for the teams around. I can feel myself getting more tense here in the commentary box as well. I mean, I think these are some of the most demanding scenarios that you can have when you're 15 minutes away from the start of a massive Grand Prix and there is rain in the air and rain forecast at some point during the race. As we mentioned, it's been a tough home Grand Prix, hasn't it, to say the least, for the factory Yamaha team. Can they rescue something on race day here? Let's get some thoughts from their boss, Lynn Jarvis, who joined Simon.
Lynn, we know it's been a tough one here, Motegi, so far for Yamaha, but can you give us your feelings going into the long race today?
Well, I can say, yeah, I would agree with you. It's been a tough one for us. We didn't make the cut to go into Q2 straight away. That put us, you know, way back here on the grid. I think if it stays dry, we're going to struggle. Simple as that. Our weatherman tells us that there's a fair chance of rain during the race. If the rain comes, it changes everything, creates new opportunities. So anyway, we have to keep positive, and if it rains, we have to pit at the right time, and who knows, we can have a decent result maybe. But we have to improve. It's as simple as that. We've had a lot of meetings here in Japan. We're making plans for the future, and right now we have to grin and bear it, get stuck in and do the best we can.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Lynn Jarvis. Yeah, tough times for Yamaha, tough times for Honda as well. Like he said, they've just got to knuckle down and try and fight their way out of this slump. A lot of meetings, but it will be actions that will speak louder than words as far as Fabio Quartararo and Alex Rins are concerned. Of course, Yamaha's star-studded lineup in 2024 and beyond. Lynn Jarvis then, another high-profile team representative who seems pretty sure that at some point over the course of the next hour or so, there is going to be rain that's going to fall in the Motegi Mountains and bring some disruption to this Japanese Grand Prix. Flag-to-flag scenario situation potentially coming up. We saw several riders in the 10-minute warm session this morning practice the bike swaps. You can lose or gain vital time when you come into the pit lane. When you think of riders that might well be relishing a change in the conditions, well, this man falls right in that category, doesn't he? Aussie Jack Miller. I've seen a lot of Australian and New Zealand fans here this weekend. Jack Miller, Johan Zarco, wet weather specialist. Marco Bezzecchi, of course, was the brilliant winner in the rain condition at Termas Rio Hondo in Argentina at the start of the season. This could be a complete game changer for this Japanese Grand Prix.
Could be a wild 24 laps coming up. If it arrives at around 3:30 or so, then of course that is going to lead us to potentially rain, what would we say, in the last maybe 5 or 7 laps of the Grand Prix race itself. That's potentially what we're looking at, half an hour into a race, which is usually around 40 minutes or so in duration. And the reason that there will be so much tension on this grid is because, of course, these teams are so happy when they're in control and they can control all the variables. They've done all the prep. When the rain comes, they're completely in the lap of the gods. Pecco Bagnaia then has led the MotoGP World Championship, as you can see, since the end of April until now. Is that championship lead only going to last for about another hour or so?
156 days then has been his reign at the top of the championship. Will he reign supreme at the end of this season? It's all eyes on Bagnaia and Martin. 10, 11 minutes or so away from lights out with those light rain spots falling. We're about 30 seconds away from our traditional pre-race grid ceremony here in Japan as Marc Marquez comes to the grid. He knows how to win in Motegi, did it in 125s, did it in Moto2, he's done the hat-trick in MotoGP. I don't suppose Mark will mind it bucketing down too much as he It's a leveler, isn't it? It will level the playing field, and if there's anybody that's been previously the master of flag-to-flag race, it has been Marc Marquez. We'll pause, though, for the national anthem of Japan. A wonderful rendition of the Japanese national anthem by Yuko Suzuhana. Beautiful that was, as the countdown to race time here in Japan is well and truly underway. Let's go down to get some pre-race thoughts of Michele Massini. One of the star performers of this weekend, without any question, has been Fabio Di Giannantonio. First points in the sprint yesterday, despite that left shoulder injury. Let's get some thoughts from Michele ahead of this Grand Prix.
Michele, you're down to one rider with Alex Marquez out injured, but Fabio Di Giannantonio doing a great job. He was fast in India, and yesterday very good in the sprints. Can you give us your thoughts about the long race today?
Yeah, with Fabio we made already a solid weekend overall, and for sure we hope to fight for the top 5 tomorrow. We know that the Sunday race is very tough, very difficult, but we will try our best.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Michele Massini. I'm just looking at our commentary box window while we're listening to those pre-race thoughts. I can see in the grandstands opposite that the rain is starting to fall. The fans are going for the ponchos. These are live pictures. The raincoats are going on. The umbrellas are going up. What, just 7 minutes away or so from the start of the warm-up lap. Wow. Can you believe this? We've had a full dry weekend, hot and humid conditions throughout here in Motegi, but we're just over 5 minutes until we get this round 14 underway, the Japanese Grand Prix in 2023. That rain that was just a few light spots a few moments ago is now starting to fall heavier, and this is going to just pile the pressure, particularly on the front runners, on the title contenders, Pecco Bagnaia, Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin.
Interesting decision, potentially facing race direction here. If this gets too heavy, of course, too soon to the start of the race, of course, there's a cut-off before the race, at which point they're not allowed to change tyres, so they might be forced into delaying the start. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Last year's winner, Jack Miller, will be rubbing his hands at the thought of this, because, of course, Jack Miller has absolutely nothing to lose here this afternoon, and as the raincoats go on, so too does the pressure on the shoulders of the world champion.
Pecco Bagnaia said yesterday he's not feeling the pressure, but he will be now, without any question, because this dramatic twist thrown at us by the elements. I can see now he's just getting a feeling in the commentary box of getting that a little bit darker as well, as the cloud cover gets heavier and heavier. On go the raincoats. For the first time, we've got spots on our camera that looks towards the start-finish line here. From what is a huge main grandstand here, overlooking. You get a full view, panoramic view of the Mobility Resort Motegi. You can see the spots of rain there on Marco Bezzecchi's visor as well. He just gives the nod to his crew. We are 5 minutes away from the warm-up lap, but where will there be some late twist in the tail because of the rain intervention? Gino Borsoi there with his hands on the headset, middle of your picture, talking to Jorge Martin's crew chief, Daniele Romagnoli. Also involved in those discussions, detailed discussions, was the Catalano team manager, Davide Tardozzi. Obviously, there's going to be concerns here about starting this race on slick tyres if that rain does get any heavier in the next 4 or 5 minutes or so. There's nothing dampening the spirits of the Japanese fans, we have to say.
Yeah, it's a tense scenario, this, isn't it? As we look at the recommended Brembo brake discs, they take an absolute hammering around this circuit. It is one of the toughest circuits on the calendar in terms of braking, but it's your nerve and your ability to think on your feet that is going to be tested in this one. So important to be on the right tyres at the right time, at the moment, with rain falling at the current intensity. No thoughts at all of gambling on some wet tyres. You would have to start this race on slicks and then just take it lap by lap. And of course, we might be in the scenario with Bagnaia and Martin where do they trust their instincts in terms of a bike swap, or do they look at each other?
And the problem for the crews as well is, of course, what do you do now? Because in case you have a problem on the warm-up lap, you're going to potentially need your spare bike fitted for a dry race on slicks, but then you're going to probably be quickly switching over to the rain tyres. This is the live pictures from the helicopter. Of course, they're carrying some altitude above ground level, but you can see in the clouds that the rain is starting to fall. On the graphic there now, confirmation that it is raining here in this part of northern Japan. Still a very pleasant ambient temperature, 25 degrees. But this rain, well, it was forecast for around the race time. Look at the spots of rain falling now. Marco Bezzecchi's screen. It is starting to look like it's coming heavier, doesn't it, down the grid as well. When we woke up in the nearby Motegi hotels here this morning around 7 a.m, it was absolutely pouring down with rain. The BMW safety car then peels away at the front. Spots of rain there on the camera lens as well in the first corner, overlooking the Mobility Resort Motegi. It looks like we are going to get a scheduled start underway here. What is going through the minds of the very best riders in the world? Because they're the very best riders for a very good reason, but these are some severely demanding conditions, particularly from a mental perspective. Front row of the grid then here in Motegi. Jack Miller, the race winner here 1 year ago, he'll be relishing potentially a flag-to-flag scenario. Nothing to lose in terms of the championship for him, but your top two men in the World Championship start side by side, neck and neck in the standings. Pecco Bagnaia fires from second, but it's Martin looking for more Motegi magic from pole.